You're too heavy for me now. Daniel's harsh words crushed Nicole's spirit, a black woman who stood by her white husband through his toughest times. She poured her soul into their marriage, fueling his dreams as his startup soared with contracts and opportunities. But success warped him. Surrounded by slender women, especially his new secretary, Chloe, Daniel betrayed Nicole, hiding behind a fake business trip to parade his mistress at a luxurious hotel, where Chloe declared herself his new wife. Heartbroken, Nicole transformed, shedding weight, reclaiming her radiance, and rising to confront her past at a grand product launch. Will her revenge reshape her destiny? How will Daniel face the woman he discarded? Subscribe to our channel, share where you're tuning in from, and what time it is. Let's dive into Nicole's epic journey. What's your guess for her triumph? The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the faint scent of jasmine from a candle flickering on the kitchen counter, filling the modest Brooklyn apartment with a warmth that Nicole had always cherished. The space was small, worn linoleum floors, a mismatched dining set, and a single window framing the gray city skyline. But it was theirs, a sanctuary built on 6 years of shared dreams. Nicole, a black woman whose strength radiated in her warm brown eyes, stood at the stove, stirring oatmeal with a practiced hand. Her full figure moved with grace, a testament to her confidence, her curves a celebration of her heritage. She had always been the heartbeat of their marriage, the one who held everything together while Daniel, her white husband, chased his ambitions. Daniel had been a dreamer when they met, a salesman with a crooked smile and a head full of startup ideas. His pitches often fell flat, leaving them scraping by on Nicole's wages from late-night shifts at a local diner. She balanced their budget, paid the bills, and stayed up late listening to his plans, her encouragement a lifeline through his rejections. "You're going to make it, Daniel," she'd say, her voice steady, her faith unwavering. She believed in him, in them, in the life they'd build together. Her love was a quiet force, unyielding even when the world seemed against them. But the tides had turned. Daniel's startup, a tech firm focused on logistics software, had finally caught a break. A string of contracts had poured in, each one bigger than the last, promising a future they'd only dreamed of. Nicole noticed the change in him, not just the new suits or the late nights at the office, but the way his eyes lingered on the sleek women who now orbited his world. Chloe, his new secretary, was the most persistent, a petite blonde with a polished smile and a wardrobe that screamed wealth. Nicole felt the sting of comparison, but she pushed it down, telling herself it was just the stress of success. Daniel still came home to her, didn't he? This morning, though, a nervous energy crackled in the air. Daniel stood in their cramped kitchen, adjusting his tie with quick, jittery movements. His face, once soft with boyish charm, was sharper now, etched with the confidence of newfound success. "This is it, Nicole," he said, his voice tight with anticipation. "This contract could put us on the map. I'll be gone a week, maybe more." Nicole turned from the stove, her heart swelling with pride. "You've worked so hard for this," she said, crossing the room to straighten his collar. "Go out there and show them what you're made of." She leaned in, her lips brushing his in a familiar kiss, but his response was fleeting, a distracted peck before he grabbed his suitcase. "Call me when you land, okay?" she called as he headed for the door. He nodded without looking back, the door clicking shut behind him. The apartment felt emptier without him, the silence pressing against her. Nicole busied herself with chores, trying to ignore the unease creeping into her chest. Days passed, and her phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls. She sent messages. "Everything okay? Miss you, call me." But they went unanswered. Each ignored ping, tightening the knot in her stomach. By the 5th day, worry consumed her. She called his office, her voice trembling as she spoke to a colleague. "Daniel, he's not on a trip," the man said hesitantly. "He's been in town at the Grand Meridian Hotel." The words hit like a slap, stealing her breath. Why would he lie? What was he hiding? Nicole's hands shook as she grabbed her coat and drove to the hotel, its towering glass facade a stark contrast to their modest life. The Grand Meridian's lobby was a world of opulence, Marble floors gleaming under chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of wealth. Her heart pounded as she scanned the crowd, her eyes locking on Daniel. He stood in the center, his suit impeccable, his smile radiant. Beside him was Chloe, her arm looped through his, her laughter sharp and possessive. Nicole's legs moved before her mind could catch up, carrying her toward them. "Daniel," she said, her voice quivering but firm. "What's going on? I've been calling you for days." Chloe's eyes flicked over Nicole, a smirk curling her lips. "Oh, you must be Nicole," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "I'm Chloe, Daniel's wife now. He doesn't have time for someone like you." The words sliced through Nicole, sharp and cold. She turned to Daniel, searching for the man she'd loved through every hardship. But his gaze was hard, unyielding. "Nicole," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. "It's over. I've moved on. You don't fit into my life anymore." Her breath caught, her mind reeling. "Fit? Because of my weight? Because I'm not like her?" She gestured to Chloe, whose smug expression faltered. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. "I'll send you some money," he said, as if that could mend the wound he'd inflicted. "My lawyer will bring the divorce papers. Sign them." Tears stung Nicole's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The lobby's grandeur seemed to mock her pain as she turned, her footsteps echoing. Daniel had discarded her, his betrayal a knife in her heart. But as she stepped into the night, a spark of defiance flickered within her. This wasn't the end. It was her beginning. The morning sun filtered through the penthouse's towering windows, casting golden streaks across the hardwood floor where Nicole stood, clutching her mother's journal like a talisman. The pain of Daniel's betrayal still lingered, a bruise on her heart, but Marcus's words from the previous night echoed louder. "You're worth more than he could ever comprehend." She opened the journal, its pages worn but vibrant with promise. Recipes for herbal teas, meal plans rich in whole foods, and gentle exercises designed to rebuild strength. Nicole's resolve hardened. This wasn't about erasing the curves she'd once loved. It was about reclaiming the woman she'd lost to doubt. She glanced at Marcus, who was sipping coffee at the kitchen island, his presence a quiet anchor. "Ready to start?" he asked, his smile warm but challenging. Nicole nodded, her voice steady. "Let's do this." The first day was a battle. Marcus guided her to the penthouse's private gym, a sleek space with mirrors and equipment she'd never touched. The journal suggested starting with simple movements, stretches, light cardio, and bodyweight exercises. But Nicole's body protested, unaccustomed to the effort. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she pushed through lunges, her legs trembling. "I feel like I'm failing already," she panted, collapsing onto a mat. Marcus knelt beside her, his voice firm but kind. "You're not failing, Nicole. You're starting. My mom struggled too. She'd curse at these same exercises, but she kept going. You will too." His belief was a lifeline, pulling her back to her feet. She thought of Daniel's cold dismissal, his eyes raking over her as if she were invisible. The memory fueled her, turning pain into determination. In the kitchen, Nicole followed the journal's meal plan, chopping vibrant vegetables and brewing a bitter green tea that promised to boost metabolism. The flavors were unfamiliar, a far cry from the comfort foods she'd leaned on during late-night shifts. She grimaced at the first sip, and Marcus laughed. "Mom hated that tea too," he said, handing her a slice of lemon to soften the taste. "But it works. Trust the process." Nicole forced down the tea, each swallow a small act of defiance. She wasn't just changing her body. She was rewriting her story, one choice at a time. Marcus joined her, preparing his own meal from the journal, his presence making the task feel less daunting. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm in this with you." The days that followed tested her resolve. Nicole woke each morning with Daniel's words haunting her. "You don't fit." The ache was raw, but she channeled it into action. She rose before dawn, lacing up sneakers Marcus had bought her, and followed the journal's yoga sequences in the quiet of the penthouse. Her body ached, her mind wavered, but the journal's words, written in Marcus's mother's neat script, kept her grounded. Strength is built in the struggle. Nicole clung to that, repeating it like a mantra. She started a notebook of her own, jotting down every small victory, A pound lost, a minute longer on the treadmill, a day without tears. Each entry felt like a brick in a new foundation, one Daniel could never touch. Marcus was her constant. He didn't push, but he was there, running alongside her in the gym, sharing stories of his mother's transformation to keep her spirits high. One evening, as they sat on the penthouse balcony, the city's lights twinkling below, he opened up. Mom was like you, Nicole. People judged her, said she wasn't enough because of her size. She'd cry sometimes, but she never let it define her. She'd say, Marcus, your worth isn't in what others see. It's in what you build. You're building something incredible now. Nicole's throat tightened, his words stirring a warmth she hadn't felt in months. What if I'm not strong enough? She whispered. Marcus's gaze was steady. You already are. You just don't see it yet. The weeks blurred, each one a step further from the woman Daniel had discarded. Nicole's clothes began to fit differently, looser around her waist, a quiet testament to her effort. But it wasn't just her body changing. Her spirit was shifting too. She started to smile again, to laugh at Marcus's jokes, to feel the weight of her pain lighten. One morning, as she blended a smoothie from the journal's recipes, she caught her reflection in the kitchen's stainless steel. The woman staring back wasn't the broken Nicole who'd left the Grand Meridian. Her eyes were brighter, her posture stronger. She wasn't there yet, but she was moving forward. Still, doubt crept in at night, when the penthouse was quiet and Daniel's betrayal replayed in her mind. Had she been enough? Could she ever be? She confided in Marcus one evening, her voice trembling. What if I'm doing all this, and it's still not enough? He set down his coffee, his expression fierce. Nicole, this isn't about being enough for someone else. It's about being enough for you. Daniel didn't see your worth, but you will. His words struck deep, igniting a fire she hadn't known was there. She wasn't transforming for Daniel or Chloe. She was doing it for herself, for the woman she was becoming. As she closed the journal that night, its pages dog-eared from use, Nicole felt a surge of purpose. The road was long, but she was ready to walk it, step by defiant step. Nicole's breath steadied as she flowed through the final yoga pose, the morning sun painting the penthouse floor in hues of amber. The journal, now a constant companion, lay open beside her, its pages a roadmap to the woman she was becoming. 3 months had passed since she'd begun this journey, and the changes were undeniable. Her body felt lighter, her movements surer. But it was the fire in her chest, kindled by Marcus's unwavering belief, that burned brightest. Daniel's betrayal still haunted her, his words, "You don't fit," a ghost she couldn't fully banish. Yet each day, as she followed the journal's guidance, Nicole felt the ghost's grip loosen. She wasn't just shedding pounds. She was shedding the weight of his judgment, reclaiming the strength she'd given him for years. The gym sessions had grown less daunting. Where once she'd stumbled through exercises, now she moved with purpose, her muscles responding to the challenge. Marcus was there most mornings, spotting her during squats or timing her on the treadmill, his encouragement a steady rhythm. You're killing it, Nicole, he'd say, his grin infectious. She'd roll her eyes, sweat dripping, but his words fueled her. The journal's meal plans, quinoa salads, lean proteins, herbal teas that no longer made her wince, had become second nature. She'd even started experimenting, adding her own flair with spices from her childhood, turning each dish into a small act of creation. Cooking grounded her, a reminder that she could build something new from the ruins Daniel had left behind. But the path wasn't smooth. Some days doubt crept in like a thief, stealing her resolve. One evening, as she chopped kale in the penthouse's sleek kitchen, the memory of Chloe's smirk flashed through her mind. Nicole's knife paused, her hands trembling. Had she been naive to think she could ever compete with women like Chloe, polished, petite, the kind Daniel now craved? She sank onto a stool, the weight of her insecurities pressing down. Marcus, sensing the shift, appeared in the doorway. You okay? He asked, his voice gentle but probing. Nicole hesitated, then let the truth spill. What if this isn't enough, Marcus? What if I change everything, and I'm still less? He pulled up a stool, his gaze steady. Nicole, My mom used to say something when people tried to tear her down. Your worth isn't their mirror, it's yours. You're not doing this to be someone else's ideal. You're doing it to feel alive again. He reached for the journal, flipping to a page with a handwritten note. The body changes, but the soul decides who you are. She wrote that after her first big milestone, Marcus said. She wasn't perfect, but she was proud. You should be too. Nicole's eyes stung, but she nodded, his words stitching up the frayed edges of her confidence. The weeks rolled on, each one marking a quiet victory. Nicole's clothes hung looser, her reflection in the gym mirrors showing a woman who stood taller, her curves still proud but defined by strength. She began to notice other changes. Her laughter came easier, her sleep deeper. Marcus introduced her to meditation, a practice from the journal that quieted her restless thoughts. Sitting cross-legged on the balcony, the city's hum a distant lullaby, she learned to breathe through the pain, to let go of Daniel's voice in her head. One morning, as she tied her hair back before a run, she caught Marcus watching her. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. He grinned. "You're glowing, Nicole. Not just outside, inside too." The compliment caught her off guard, warmth spreading through her. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen, truly seen, not as a shadow of someone's expectations. Marcus had become more than a friend. He was a mirror reflecting her potential, a partner in her rebirth. They spent evenings talking, not just about her journey, but about life, dreams, the past. He shared stories of his mother's transformation, how she'd faced ridicule but emerged radiant, her confidence a shield. "She'd love you," Marcus said one night, his voice soft. "You've got her fire." Nicole blushed, deflecting with a laugh, but his words settled deep, a seed of belief taking root. As the fourth month approached, Nicole stood before a full-length mirror, trying on a dress Marcus had insisted she buy, a deep emerald that hugged her evolving figure. She barely recognized the woman staring back, strong, vibrant, her eyes alight with purpose. The journal lay on her bed, its pages now filled with her own notes. Recipes tweaked, workouts mastered, moments of pride. She wasn't done, but she was closer to the Nicole she'd always been meant to be. Daniel's betrayal still lingered, a faint scar, but it no longer defined her. She was building something new, something unbreakable. That night, Marcus knocked on her door, holding 2 mugs of chamomile tea. "Big day tomorrow," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I've got an idea. There's a tech gala coming up. I want you there, Nicole. Not as a guest, but as my partner." Her heart skipped. A public event, surrounded by the elite. It was daunting, but the challenge thrilled her. "You think I'm ready?" she asked. Marcus's smile was unwavering. "I know you are." As she sipped the tea, Nicole felt a surge of anticipation. The gala would be her stage, a chance to step into her power. Whatever lay ahead, she was no longer the woman Daniel had discarded. She was Nicole, rising, ready to claim her future. The emerald dress clung to Nicole's curves like a second skin, its deep hue catching the light as she turned before the mirror. 4 months of discipline, guided by the journal's wisdom and Marcus's steadfast encouragement, had sculpted her body into something strong, vibrant, a testament to her resolve. But it was the spark in her eyes, the fire of a woman reclaiming her worth, that made her pause. Tonight's tech gala wasn't just an event, it was her debut, a declaration that Daniel's betrayal hadn't broken her. She smoothed the fabric, her fingers steady despite the flutter in her chest. Marcus's words from the previous night echoed. "You're ready." She was. The penthouse hummed with quiet anticipation as she slipped into heels, each step a promise to herself. Nicole was no longer the shadow Daniel had cast aside. She was a force, ready to shine. Marcus waited by the door, his tailored suit accentuating his quiet strength. His eyes widened as she approached, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Nicole, you're breathtaking," he said, his voice low, reverent. She blushed, the compliment warming her like sunlight. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she teased, but her heart raced. His gaze held hers, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they'd shared. He offered his arm, and they stepped into the elevator, the city's skyline glittering beyond the glass. "Nervous?" he asked as they descended. Nicole exhaled, her breath steadying. "A little, but I'm not hiding anymore." Marcus nodded, his pride palpable. "Good. Let them see you." The gala was a spectacle, held in a sleek Manhattan ballroom where chandeliers cast a golden glow over tech moguls, investors, and influencers. The air buzzed with ambition, glasses clinking, laughter mingling with the hum of deals being struck. Nicole's pulse quickened as she and Marcus entered, her dress shimmering under the lights. Heads turned, whispers trailing in their wake. She felt the weight of their gazes, not judgment, but admiration. Her confidence surged, a tide lifting her higher. Marcus leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "You belong here, Nicole. Own it." She straightened, her chin lifting. For the first time in months, she felt like she did. They mingled, Marcus introducing her to colleagues as his brilliant partner, his words carrying a weight that made her heart swell. Nicole found herself speaking with ease, her voice steady as she discussed tech trends and Marcus's latest project. The journal's lessons had reshaped more than her body. They'd sharpened her mind, her sense of self. She laughed at a CEO's joke, and her smile radiant, and caught Marcus watching her, his eyes alight with something deeper than friendship. The moment felt electric, a promise of something new, but before she could dwell on it, a familiar figure across the room froze her. Daniel stood near a marble pillar, his suit slightly rumpled, his face etched with strain. Beside him was Chloe, her blonde hair sleek, her smile forced. Nicole's breath hitched, the memory of their cruelty in the hotel lobby flooding back. But she wasn't that woman anymore. She tightened her grip on Marcus's arm, drawing strength from his presence. Daniel's eyes scanned the room, then landed on her. His brows furrowed, confusion giving way to shock. He whispered something to Chloe, who glanced over, her expression souring. Nicole met Daniel's gaze, her own unflinching. "Looks like we have company," she murmured to Marcus. He followed her line of sight, his jaw tightening. "You want to handle this?" he asked. She nodded, a spark of defiance igniting. "Oh, I'm ready." Daniel approached, his steps hesitant, Chloe trailing behind like a reluctant shadow. "Nicole?" he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. You look different." His eyes raked over her, lingering on the dress, the confidence she wore like armor. Nicole smiled, cool and composed. "I am different, Daniel, but not for you." Her words were a blade, sharp but controlled. Chloe's lips pursed, her attempt at a smile faltering. "Well, you've certainly changed," she said, her tone laced with envy. Nicole's gaze didn't waver. "I've become who I was always meant to be." Marcus stepped forward, his presence commanding. "Daniel, I don't believe you've met Nicole in her new role. She's overseeing our latest project, the one your company's tied to." Daniel's face paled, his eyes darting between them. "Overseeing?" he stammered. Marcus's smile was razor sharp. "Yes, your contract's under her watch now. I trust you'll deliver." The implication hung heavy. Nicole held power, and Daniel's fate was in her hands. Chloe's hand tightened on Daniel's arm, her unease palpable. Nicole felt a surge of triumph, not born of vengeance but of her own strength. She wasn't here to gloat, she was here to rise. As Daniel and Chloe retreated, their discomfort evident, Marcus turned to Nicole, his voice low. "You were incredible." She exhaled, the adrenaline still coursing through her. "I didn't expect to feel this strong." He squeezed her hand, his touch grounding. "This is just the beginning." The ballroom pulsed around them, but for Nicole, the moment was hers alone. She'd faced her past and stood taller. The gala was no longer just an event, it was her stage, and she was ready to claim it. Whatever lay ahead, Nicole knew one thing. She was unstoppable, and the world would see it. The echo of the gala's energy still thrummed in Nicole's veins as she stepped into Marcus's sleek office the next morning, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop through the glass walls. Her encounter with Daniel and Chloe had lit a fire within her, not of revenge but of purpose. She wasn't the woman Daniel had discarded. She was Nicole, radiant and in control, now tasked with overseeing his company's contract. The weight of that power settled over her like a mantle, both thrilling and daunting. Marcus handed her a tablet, the project files glowing on the screen. "You're calling the shots now," he said, his voice steady with trust. "Daniel's company is behind schedule, and their financials are a mess. Show them what you're made of." Nicole nodded, her resolve stealing. She was ready to prove herself, not to Daniel, but to the woman she'd fought to become. Her first meeting with Daniel's team was in a stark conference room, the air thick with tension. Daniel sat across from her, his tie askew, his eyes darting nervously. Chloe was absent, her absence a silent admission of her unease from the gala. Nicole stood at the head of the table, her emerald dress traded for a tailored blazer that hugged her transformed figure. "Let's review your progress," she said, her voice calm but commanding. The team presented their report, a patchwork of excuses and half-finished deliverables. Nicole's eyes scanned the numbers, her mind sharp from months of discipline. "This is unacceptable," she said, her tone cutting through the room's unease. "You've had months and millions, yet you're weeks behind. Explain." Daniel shifted, his confidence crumbling. "It's, complicated," he stammered. "We've had unexpected costs." Nicole raised an eyebrow, her gaze piercing. "Unexpected or mismanaged? Your expense reports show lavish trips, parties, a new office suite. Where's the work?" The room fell silent, Daniel's team exchanging uneasy glances. He cleared his throat, his voice strained. "Nicole, we just need more time." She leaned forward, her presence unyielding. "Time was a luxury you squandered. You have 3 weeks to deliver, or we pull the contract." Daniel's face paled, the reality sinking in. Nicole wasn't just overseeing his project, she held his future in her hands. Back at the penthouse, Nicole paced the living room, adrenaline coursing through her. Marcus watched from the couch, a glass of wine in hand. "You were a force in there," he said, his smile proud. Daniel didn't know what hit him. Nicole exhaled, sinking beside him. "I didn't expect it to feel powerful, but it's not about him. It's about doing this right." Marcus nodded, his eyes warm. "That's why I chose you. You're not just strong, you're fair. My mom always said power isn't about crushing others, it's about building something better." His words stirred a memory of the journal, its pages guiding her to this moment. She wasn't here to destroy Daniel. She was here to rise above him. But Daniel's world was unraveling. His office, once a symbol of his success, was now a cage of stress. He stared at the reports Nicole had flagged, each red mark a reminder of his failures. The lavish lifestyle he'd built with Chloe, private jets, designer clothes, extravagant dinners, had drained the company's funds. He'd assumed the contract was a blank check, that Marcus's firm would overlook delays. But Nicole's scrutiny was relentless. He tried calling investors, his voice laced with desperation, but doors that once opened for him now slammed shut. Chloe, sensing the shift, grew distant, her visits to the office less frequent. "Fix this, Daniel," she'd snapped during their last argument, her eyes cold. "I didn't sign up for failure." One evening, Daniel appeared at Marcus's office, his face haggard. Nicole was reviewing files when he knocked, his voice low. "Can we talk?" She gestured to a chair, her expression neutral. "What's this about?" He fidgeted, avoiding her gaze. "Nicole, I messed up. The project's a mess, and I know it. Can you give us an extension? For old time's sake?" The plea hung between them, heavy with irony. Nicole's mind flashed to the hotel lobby, his cold dismissal, Chloe's smirk. She leaned back, her voice steady. "This isn't about the past, Daniel. It's about accountability. You had your chance, deliver or face the consequences." He left, his shoulders slumped, the weight of his choices crushing him. Nicole turned back to her work, her heart steady. She wasn't cruel, she was just. Marcus joined her later, his presence a quiet comfort. "You handled that like a pro," he said, handing her a coffee. She smiled, the warmth of his support grounding her. "It's strange being the one in control, but it feels, right." He studied her, his gaze softening. "You're not just in control, Nicole. You're unstoppable." The words sank deep, stirring something new. a spark of possibility, not just for her work, but for what lay between them. As she left the office that night, the city's lights shimmering below, Nicole felt a shift. Daniel's failure was his own, a consequence of his greed and betrayal. She, however, was building something greater, a life defined by her strength, her choices. The journal's lessons had brought her here, but it was her own fire that kept her moving forward. The next 3 weeks would test her, but Nicole was ready. She wasn't just overseeing a contract, she was claiming her power, her future, and the woman she'd always been meant to be. The city's pulse thrummed through the glass walls of Marcus's office, but Nicole's focus was razor sharp, her eyes scanning the latest report from Daniel's company. The numbers told a damning story: missed deadlines, inflated expenses, indeliverables that existed only on paper. Her confrontation with Daniel had set the tone. Accountability was non-negotiable. She wasn't the broken woman he discarded at the Grand Meridian. She was Nicole, a force of clarity and strength holding his fate in her hands. The 3-week deadline she'd given him loomed, and with each passing day, Daniel's desperation grew palpable. Nicole felt no satisfaction in his unraveling, only a quiet resolve to uphold the integrity of the project she now commanded. Marcus's trust in her was a mantle she wore with pride, and she wouldn't falter. Daniel's office, once a gleaming symbol of his ascent, was now a chaos of scattered papers and unanswered voicemails. He sat at his desk, his face gaunt, the weight of his mistakes pressing down. The lavish lifestyle he'd built with Chloe, yacht rentals, penthouse parties, her endless demands for designer handbags, had bled his company dry. He'd gambled on the contract with Marcus's firm, assuming his charm would buy him time. But Nicole's scrutiny was relentless, her reports exposing every misstep. He tried calling investors, his voice hoarse with panic, but his calls went to voicemail. "You've overplayed your hand," one financier snapped before hanging up. Daniel's hands trembled as he dialed Chloe, hoping her presence would anchor him. "We need to talk," he said, but her response was curt. "I'm busy, Daniel. Figure it out." Chloe's visits dwindled, her absence a cold confirmation of her loyalty. To his money, not him. Late one night, she stormed into his office, her heels clicking sharply. "This is a disaster," she hissed, tossing a tabloid onto his desk. The headline screamed, "Tech stars startup sinking fast." "You said we were set, Daniel. Now we're a joke." He rubbed his temples, his voice cracking. "I'm trying, Chloe. I just need time." Her eyes narrowed, cold and calculating. "I didn't leave my life for a loser. Fix this, or I'm gone." She turned on her heel, leaving him alone with the echo of her words. Daniel stared at the tabloid, the irony bitter. He'd left Nicole for this, for a woman who saw him as a ticket to luxury, not a partner. Nicole, meanwhile, thrived in her role. She led meetings with a quiet authority, her insights earning nods from Marcus's team. The journal's lessons, discipline, focus, resilience had sharpened her mind as much as her body. She'd traded late-night doubts for early-morning strategies, her confidence a shield against the past. Marcus was her constant, his support unwavering. One evening, as they reviewed files over takeout, he leaned back, studying her. "You're a natural at this, Nicole," he said, his voice warm. "The team respects you. I respect you." She smiled, the weight of his words settling deep. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. He shook his head. "You did this. I just gave you a nudge." Their late-night work sessions grew longer, the line between colleagues and something more blurring. Marcus shared stories of his mother, her transformation a beacon for Nicole. "She used to say, 'Hard times show you who you are,'" he told her one night, the city's lights reflecting in his eyes. "You're showing the world who you are, Nicole." Her heart fluttered, his words stirring a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She wanted to lean into it, to explore the spark between them, but Daniel's deadline loomed, demanding her focus. She pushed the thought aside, but Marcus's gaze lingered, a promise of something unspoken. 2 days before the deadline, Daniel appeared at her office, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "Nicole, please," he begged, his voice raw. "We're out of time. If you pull the contract, I lose everything." Nicole leaned back in her chair, her expression calm but unyielding. You had months, Daniel. You chose parties over progress, Chloe over responsibility. This isn't personal. It's business. His face crumpled, a flicker of the man she'd once loved. I was wrong, he whispered. About you. About everything. The admission hung between them, heavy with regret, but Nicole's heart didn't waver. Regret doesn't fix mistakes, she said. Results do. You have 2 days. Daniel left, his shoulders slumped, the weight of his choices crushing him. Nicole turned to the window, the city sprawling below. She felt no joy in his downfall, only a quiet strength in her own rise. Marcus joined her, his presence steadying. You okay? He asked, his voice soft. She nodded, a faint smile breaking through. I'm more than okay. I'm free. He squeezed her shoulder, his touch electric. You're incredible, Nicole. And this is just the start. As she looked out at the city, Nicole felt a surge of certainty. Daniel's world was crumbling, but hers was soaring. The journal had guided her body, Marcus her spirit, but it was her own fire that carried her forward. The final reckoning was near, and Nicole was ready to shape her future on her terms. The city's skyline sparkled like a promise as Nicole stood before her mirror, the soft glow of morning light catching the intricate lace of her wedding gown. The fabric hugged her transformed figure, a testament to the months of discipline that had reshaped her body and soul. Daniel's deadline had passed, his company's failure sealed with a formal letter from Marcus's firm demanding repayment. Nicole had delivered the verdict with calm authority, her heart steady as Daniel's world crumbled. Now, on this day, she wasn't thinking of him. She was thinking of herself, the woman who'd risen from betrayal, who'd turned pain into power. The journal, its pages worn from her touch, lay on the vanity, a silent partner in her journey. Marcus's voice echoed in her mind. You're incredible, Nicole, and this is just the start. Today, she would step into her future, whole and unbroken. Daniel's fall was complete. The tabloids had pounced, their headlines merciless. Tech prodigy bankrupt after mismanagement scandal. His office was shuttered, his assets seized to cover debts. Chloe had vanished days before the deadline, leaving behind a scathing note. You're not who I thought you were. Daniel had stared at it, the irony bitter. He'd said the same to Nicole, discarding her for a fantasy that crumbled under scrutiny. Alone in a rented apartment, stripped of the luxuries he'd chased, he saw her face in every newsstand. Rising star, Nicole leads tech giant's new venture. The articles didn't mention their past, but he knew. The woman he'd called unworthy now outshone him, her success a mirror to his failure. Regret gnawed at him, a relentless ache, but pride kept him silent. He'd lost her, and with her, everything. Nicole's rise was the talk of the industry. Marcus had promoted her to lead a new division, her vision shaping projects that drew investors like moths to a flame. The journal's lessons, discipline, resilience, self-belief had become her North Star, guiding her through boardrooms and beyond. But it was Marcus's unwavering faith that anchored her. Their late-night talks had evolved, the spark between them growing undeniable. One evening, weeks after Daniel's deadline, they'd stood on the penthouse balcony, the city humming below. Marcus took her hand, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Nicole, I've loved you since college. Your strength, your heart, you're everything I've ever wanted. Will you marry me? Her breath caught, tears welling as she saw the truth in his eyes. Yes, she whispered, the word a vow to herself as much as to him. Now in the quiet of the bridal suite, Nicole adjusted her veil, her reflection radiant. The gown was a masterpiece, its lace tracing patterns of resilience across her skin. She thought of the journal, of Marcus's mother, whose words had guided her. The soul decides who you are. Nicole's soul had chosen strength, love, a life unburdened by Daniel's shadow. A knock broke her reverie. Marcus's sister, her maid of honor, peeked in. It's time, she said, her smile warm. Nicole took a breath, her heart full. She wasn't just walking to Marcus, she was walking toward herself, the woman she'd fought to become. The ceremony was held in a rooftop garden, the city sprawling beneath a sky painted with dusk. Guests filled the space, their murmurs fading as Nicole appeared. Marcus stood at the altar, his eyes locking on hers, a smile breaking across his face. She walked down the aisle, each step deliberate, her gown shimmering under the string lights. The crowd blurred, colleagues, friends, industry titans, but her focus was Marcus, his love a beacon. The officiant's words wove around them, but it was their vows that cut through. "Nicole," Marcus said, his voice steady, "you've shown me what strength looks like. I promise to stand by you, always." Her voice trembled but held firm. "Marcus, you saw me when I couldn't see myself. I promise to love you, fiercely, forever." The reception buzzed with joy, laughter echoing as Nicole and Marcus danced, their bodies swaying to a slow melody. She caught her reflection in a glass panel, a woman transformed, not just in body but in spirit. Daniel's betrayal had once felt like the end, but it was the catalyst for this moment. She'd thought losing him was her lowest point. Now she saw it as her greatest gift. It had forced her to rebuild, to discover a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Marcus pulled her close, his breath warm against her ear. "You're my home, Nicole," he whispered. She smiled, her heart soaring. "And you're mine." Across town, Daniel sat in his dim apartment, a news alert lighting up his phone. Tech powerhouse weds in stunning ceremony. The photo showed Nicole, radiant in white, Marcus's arm around her. Daniel's chest tightened, regret a tidal wave. He'd thrown away a woman who'd given him everything, chasing a fleeting illusion with Chloe. Now Nicole was untouchable, her success a beacon he could never reach. He turned off the phone, the darkness swallowing him. Nicole, twirling under the stars, felt no need for revenge. Her triumph was her life, vibrant, full, hers. The journal had guided her. Marcus had believed in her, but she had saved herself. As the music swelled, she leaned into Marcus, her laughter mingling with his. This was her victory, her dawn, a life built on her own terms. The past was gone, and Nicole was free. Nicole's story is a testament to the fire within us all. From the ashes of Daniel's betrayal, his cruel dismissal of her worth, she rose, not with vengeance, but with a strength that redefined her. A Black woman who once poured her heart into a marriage that crumbled under ambition, Nicole transformed her pain into power. Guided by a tattered journal and Marcus's unwavering belief, she shed doubt as much as weight, emerging radiant at a tech gala where she faced her past and claimed her future. Daniel's fall, stripped of his empire and abandoned by Chloe, was his own making, while Nicole's triumph culminated in love and self-discovery. Her wedding to Marcus wasn't just a union, it was a declaration. She was enough, always had been. What does Nicole's journey stir in you? Have you faced a moment where betrayal sparked your own rebirth? Or perhaps you've witnessed someone rise above their pain? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below and let us know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Your stories fuel ours, and we're grateful for every voice in this community. Thank you for joining us on this emotional ride, for letting Nicole's strength inspire you, and for being part of our storytelling family. Your support, every like, share, and subscription keeps these tales alive. We can't wait to bring you another journey, another heart, another triumph. Until then, keep shining, keep rising, and we'll see you in the next story. What will it hold? Stay tuned to find out.